Hi, this is Cheryl St.Pierre of Majestic Wire Artworks. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this chain and ribbon bracelet. Isn't it pretty? Okay, so what you're going to need to make this is you're going to need a simple clasp, like a standard lobster claw. I think we need that because it is a fairly delicate bracelet, and we don't want anything overly big, and it just lends itself to it. It's nice having pretty ones. I have a heart-shaped lobster claw, but it digs into the wrist when in this direction. So that's why I like this lobster claw. Keep it simple. And you're going to need about... And I'm guesstimating here because it's going to vary for anybody. You're going to need a total of about 6 feet of 20 gauge dead soft wire. I'm using raw copper. You're going to need a metal file. You may not need it, but most likely will. You're going to need your round nose pliers. I'm using the Bennycraft ones that I have in the link, and it will make the exact size of length I'm making, so it's going to be pliers specific as to the size. Although you can use my same technique with your pliers, it might make bigger lengths, it may not. You're going to need your chain nose pliers, and you're going to need your flush cutters. Now the flush cutters I'm using, I also have the link. They're very thin, they're very tiny, it gets into the place is very good, and it cuts pretty good. If you can do it a really good job, then you won't need the metal file, and it's going to be less work, but still sometimes you still need to use the metal file. So, and then a chain nose pliers. Mine are nice and pointy, but it doesn't have much. It really doesn't have a huge impact on this video. So you might need a ruler. So it's always good to have a ruler. You're going to need a ribbon that's 5 millimeters wide, or one that you're happy with. Or if you're going to use just fiber, fabric, a strip of fabric that's been rolled around and frayed on the edges, you could do that too. It'll have a totally different look. I usually use about a good foot of ribbon, because I liked, if you make it too short, it makes it hard to put it in the bracelet. So you're better off having extra length and then cutting it off later. It just makes it easier to work with. Okay, so the first thing we're going to make are these clasps. Not clasps, links. What am I saying? Okay, so this is what they look like. I call them bow links. So maybe I should call this bow link chain with ribbon. That's going to be the name, bow link chain. And because they're not really infinity links, they're more shaped like a bow. And this is what they look like in the back. Nice and neat. And we need to make, it's good to have extras, because even when I'm trying to make them exactly the same size, they have slight variations in size, and you can pick the best ones. But this little bit of size difference, it won't show up in the final bracelet. You can't visually tell the difference. So do not stress about making them the exact same length. You just don't want them like 4 millimeters difference in length. Here I have a difference maybe 1.5 millimeters. So that's not a huge difference. And my technique is going to help you do a pretty good job. So let's begin. So you're going to take your 20 gauge wire. Take about whatever you're comfortable with. You could use a foot at a time of working wire, or 16 inches. I usually use, it wastes more wire if you use a foot, but if a foot, it just feels more comfortable in your hands. So I'm using the pliers. These are the Bennycraft pliers, and I'm using the one that doesn't have the divot in it. See right there, it's got a divot, because that can bend the wire. So I'm putting it on the pliers, on the one that doesn't have the divot, and I have on this side about 1.5 centimeters of wire. You could do it shorter and it wouldn't waste as much wire if you're doing sterling silver, but it's going to be harder to bend, although silver probably is easier to bend anyways. So if you're doing sterling silver, just give yourself 1 centimeter, but you don't want much shorter. So, sorry, I went out of the frame. I'm bending it around right at the base. So I'm using the largest size of the pliers, and now I'm moving this around, making sure it's snug. And this is what I mean by, this is very, I want to bend it a little bit more, so make it go like this, bend it a little bit more. I couldn't do what I wanted to do. Now pay attention here. I want the long wire to go under the short wire, because we want all of these to go the same direction to make it have a neat look. And then the next step is, see this rectangular base? We're using that for our measurement. We want this wire to go over straight with the edge of that. And we're going to leave it there. And this wire's underneath. And we're going to meet at that corner. See the corner of the pliers. Okay, so right there. Then you're going to take your pliers out. And now you're going to take your chain nose pliers, and you're going to go like this, and you're going to hold it firmly. Not so it mars the wire, but firmly to hold it in position. And now I want you to push this wire down to bend around the other wire, and we want it to bend underneath itself. So if it's not underneath itself, then you take your pliers and straighten it so it is. And then the next thing you're going to do, I'm going to move this out of the way, is you're going to push it down with your finger the rest of the way. And now this is where having this type of flush cutter is really important. Now I'm going to get it positioned first, and then I'll show you what I've got. So actually you want the top of the flush cutter, that's this shaved side, on top. I almost did it wrong. And now I'm going into there, and I'm cutting at about a 45-degree angle in this direction. And what that does, and I'm snipping that, what that does is it allows, when we push this down, it allows that wire to get closer to that wire and less chance of snagging anything later on. So now I'm going to crimp it down and make sure it's behind the other wire, and that's what it looks like. It's nice and short. If it gets too long, then you just go in and snip it again and then crimp it down again. And you will get to know what you prefer as far as length. I like mine fairly short, because then I know it's not going to snag anybody. There's no mark. It's pretty much protected, and it's not going to snag anybody. Okay, so that's half of it done. And I know I'm doing a lot of talking, but I'm explaining why I do things the way I do. Now I want you to take it like this. See, this is the end, and this one is the long wire. I want you to use this as a handle. And then take your round nose pliers, and again, I'm making sure I don't have the round one with the divot. And I'm using this base here to measure again. And I'm pushing against that wire, and making it stop right on the edge of that square. And then I lift it up at an angle so that when I squeeze it, it's between the two pliers, and it's going to hold it in position. We don't want it between the two square bases, because then we won't be able to make the round link. And then you'd have to start all over again, because you really can't fix that kink that you get in there. So now I'm carefully wrapping it around the base like this. And I've got it most of the way. And now I have to turn it. Make sure it's all the way down again. And now I am trying to get close to the camera. I'm going to bend this so it's parallel right there. See how those two wires are hugging? That's where I want to stop. Okay? And this is what's nice about copper. It's going to stay. With silver, it has more spring, or brass, or anything else you would do. It would have more spring. And in that instance, you would have to overbend it and it would spring back. But with copper, it stays put. So, beauty of copper. Now take your chain nose pliers again. Hold it in place right there and bend it so it's behind itself again. Like that. And see how that looks? It's nice and neat. Push it down with your fingers as close as possible and then snip it just the same as we did before at that 45-degree angle. What I do is I actually touch the tip of my pliers to the link in the middle. I make sure it doesn't cut anything, but that's how close I like to get, at 45 degrees. Snip it. Sometimes I don't cut off enough and I have to do it the second time. There's no harm or shame in doing that. This one actually does look too long. See, that one's too long. See the difference between the two? So I'm going to snip it again. And you end up with a lot of little pieces of metal. It's good to have a throwaway bowl to put them in as you make the mess. Crimp it down. Make sure it's behind. And now the next step is, it usually isn't sitting level, so you usually have to twist it just a smidge and make sure it's level. And that link is done. Okay, so if you need to watch that a second time, go back and watch it again. Remember, it's going to take a while to get your technique down, so don't rush yourself. Just keep making more and more until you have enough to make your length of bracelet. And remember, they're going to be, you'll be able to tell the length, and you should make 1 or 2 practice ones just so you know what bracelet makes, how many links makes what size of bracelet. It's good to have a few of them on hand just for quick reference. And it's always good to practice techniques anyways. So I recommend that you make 12 good links. You might use only 10 of them, but it's good to have extra. And then you can keep the extra links if you want, or if you don't like stashing things, just throw them out. Okay, so the next thing I want you to do is we're going to make one to put the clasp on. And that one's going to be slightly different. All the other links, this one on this bracelet, I made the clasp one smaller. I rethought that. I think we should make it the full size. So I think you just use a regular link for that. If you choose to make it smaller, just if you wanted to have a little bit shorter bracelet, that would do the trick for you. But you would just follow suit as to what I did for putting on the clasp. So we're going to start it the same way as we did the other one. You've got 1.5 centimeters of wire extra. You're gonna, we're pushing the long wire around. Whoops, gotta quit doing that. Long wire around, okay. Doing it a little bit more, making sure I'm underneath. Okay, now I've got this lined up with the edge there, and I'm pushing this to meet at the corner of that base of your shank, I guess is what it's called. You take it off, take your chain nose pliers, hold it about there, push it under. Now if that's too short, this wire's too short, it's going to be harder to do. Still doable, but harder to do, because the longer it is, that's where physics comes in, I believe, and it takes less pressure when it's longer. And now I'm going to go at the angle to snip the wire. And the wire flew on me, so I can't even put it in my bowl. It's on my floor. Crimp it down, and it moved. So you just straighten it. Okay, so do I have it all the way? It's always good to check. I'm holding this further away from my face so that it's under the camera, so my vision isn't as thorough from that direction. Okay, so this is where it's different. Now we want to make a smaller loop here. So we're just gonna put our pliers, and I'm using the middle of my pliers. It's whatever size you desire, and I'm just gonna wrap it around. Until it meets it, and it might not go parallel, but that's okay. We're gonna make it go close as possible. I've got it sitting there, and then I'm just gonna pull it back like that. But I don't want to bend it under yet. What I want to do is take my lobster claw, and I want it so this is the top. Okay, we want to have this part at the top. So in order to slide it on, we're going to have it upside down because it's going to flip over as we put it around the loop. So, and we want it like that. Okay, so now you do exactly the same as what you did before. You grab this, we have less room, so it's going to be further up the pliers, but that's okay. And just wrap it around behind itself, snip it off, crimp it in, and it's done. And that's the link that your lobster claw is attached to, and that's going to be at the end of your bracelet. Okay, and that's done. So that's not too hard. So the trickier stuff is about to come. Okay, so what we're going to do to attach those links is we're going to make these little coily links to attach it to. And you're probably wondering, how are we getting that on there? Well, I will show you. Now, I've goofed up on a few, but I figured because it's a little bit time consuming, I'm just going to leave them on. And I'm not perfect at this yet. This is my second bracelet. And it's been a process, trust me. This tutorial has taken a bit to get to you. A lot of testing and a lot of technique improving. So, anyways, next thing you're going to do is you're going to take about 11, 12, 14 inches of 20 gauge wire. And I did not cut this ahead of time, so I've got to cut it now. And I'm just going to take a guesstimating of a good foot. And you can just guesstimate that too. It doesn't have to be precise because we're just making a bunch of those curly links. And we might have to go a second round of making them, but that's okay. So I want you to have a tail so that it's easy to see the end. And I'm going the size about middle of my shank. Now, why I picked that is I have to be able to get 2 wires in between that. and comfortably move. So I want you might have to experiment with what size you want. So you might just want to do a little bit and experiment with it to see what size is right on your pliers. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm making a big coil around here. And I'm just trying to keep it in the middle of my pliers. And every time that wire comes around, I have to take my pliers out and work around it. And they don't have to be precisely the same size, approximately. And they don't have to be neatly together, because it doesn't matter. And you just keep going. I went a little bit too far apart there, but that's okay. I'm going to leave it. This is similar to making your own jump rings, but still different. Jump rings, you got to be a little bit more exact, I guess. Not gripping on me. And this can take practice trying to keep it in the center. But you really can't mess up on these. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Okay, so because of what I'm going to do next, you'll see why it doesn't matter if you've got some spread apart, is now we're spreading them apart on purpose. We don't want them too far apart either, but we want it apart where we can comfortably get these wires through there to screw it on to the two clasps. So it's got to be a little bit bigger than for just getting one through. We're getting two through. And I'm just going to take this and stretch out that. And you will get to know what works by actually doing it. And I adjust them as I go. I make them smaller if they're too big, because if they're too big, you'll have issues putting them on. If they're too small, I'm talking the coil distance being split apart. If they're too small, you'll have difficulties. So it's got to be a balance. I know that this is too big, so I'm just going to put them back together a little bit smaller. And they don't have to be exact. They can be messy looking here too. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. So the next step is we are just going to cut off some of them. I'm cutting that off. And then what we want is 2 rotations. And I'm giving it a little bit extra because we're going to snip off the ends to make them neater afterwards. So right now, I'm just cutting it off like that, and I've got a little bit extra. See how they're overlapping? It might not end up overlapping later on, but that's where we want it right now. And put them in a pile, and just make a few of them. Okay, so I'm just going to make 3 right now because I don't want to waste your time on the video. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ends and I'm snipping them a certain way again, just so that we have less filing to do. So I am doing it so that it's It's hard to describe the angle. I'm going in this way, but also up. So I'm going, it's so hard to explain this. So I want it to be angled this way so that the bottom part is longer, but I also want to go this way so that the inner part is longer, and that way the burr is going to be closest to the center wire when I crimp them together. Now I hope that made sense. So I'm going, and I'm just snipping off the tiniest piece just to do that, and then when I go like this, it doesn't have a rough edge. And then if I do it right, I won't have to file it off later. Okay, so that one seems a little bit rough, so then I cut it off a little bit more, and that's how you get some shorter than others. Okay, do it again, just a little bit. Better. Okay, so I'm going to stop with that. You can do a bunch of them and then put them in a dish so they're all ready to go. Now I'm just going to show you how to put two links together. So you take two links. I'm going to take the link with my clasp and just another link and start there, because then we do one end of the bracelet to the other, and then you can tell exactly how long your bracelet is. Okay, so this is like sewing, but I just noticed that this isn't together. So if yours are like that, this is how to fix it. You just pinch it together and then it gets better. Okay, so it's like sewing. You want the two right sides together. So what I mean by right sides, for those that don't sew, is this is the good side. This is the back side where it's got the ends. Okay, so that's the good side, and this one's the good side. So we want to put the two good sides facing each other when we do this. So we're going to take the little wire thing, and I'm going to stick it one link on there, and I'm going to hold it like this just to grip it in place. And then I'm going to take the second link and make sure I have it so that the good side is facing towards the other link, and put it on. And I'm supporting that so it doesn't move on me. And now I'm twisting it and making sure it wraps around both as it goes, twisting so that it has both in the center. See there, I've got both pieces in the center of the coil. At this point, I'm going to hold it with the two ends facing upwards. And I'm just going to crimp them together, or well, squeeze them together. Okay, so it's like that. I don't have any rough edges there, so I won't have to file that. And now I'm flipping it around, and I'm going to squeeze those two together. And now they're together. And there it is. There's two links together. And that's the right side up. You can see how it got shorter on me. Maybe I should have given myself even more length for snipping room. But you know, it's okay. It still looks nice. There's nothing wrong with that. Because it's going to have the ribbon over top of that, it's okay. Now, if you're going to take the same chain and make a necklace out of it without the ribbon, you'd probably want to be pickier how you made those. And again, that's practice, right? With practice, we get better. I'm not perfect at it yet, because I just came up with this idea a couple of days ago, probably 3 or 4 days ago now. Okay, so that's what you got to do. You put all your links together until you think you have your desired length. And because it's flat, it's going to be fairly similar to what you need for your wrist. Again, I recommend experimenting but it's going to be, the rule of thumb is to make your bracelet 1/2 inch larger than your wrist, and that rule of thumb would follow suit for this. I can see that my time is at that 1/2 hour magic point where my phone cuts out. I'm going to end this and then start again with a fresh video. So what I want you to do until the next video, part 2, is I want you to wrap the ribbons. Oops, put all your links together. And we'll see you in the next one. I might end up just, I might be able to put the 2 together, but if I don't, I'll see you in the next one. Okay? Talk to you in a bit. Hi, this is Cheryl St.Pierre of Majestic Wire Artworks. I'm returning with part B of the bow link chain and ribbon bracelet. So I got all my links together, and it actually measures 8 inches. So the other one I made was 7.5 inches. So everyone's going to be, well, I've got one extra link in here too. So that would make sense. Okay, so what I wanted to do was go over checking your, I don't know, what do you call them? Coil links? It's kind of like I'm not sure what to call them. Anyways, you can write in the comments what I should be calling them. Right. So now with checks, you're going to be checking for sharp edges. And if you were inconsistent with, I'm going to get this out of here because it makes it blurry, inconsistent with the size of your wraps, which sometimes happened, push down, like squeeze it like this and push this down a little bit. So it actually is a little bit lower than the full round loop. And that will make it less likely to have a burr. But still, you're going to have burrs. So that's when you take and you make it so that the ends are up like this. You hold the 2 links down, and then you hold it securely, and you take your nail file, or not nail file, your metal file, and you just go down one direction and get that burr out of the way. And sometimes you got to readjust and readjust because it moves on you while you're doing it. But just do the best you can until you don't feel any sharp edges. Okay, with the bracelet, we don't really need to worry about these. As long as it's not going to catch on the ribbon, we're good. The ribbon's in between the skin and that, but it's highly unlikely that it's going to affect you anyways, because it's really risen in the middle there. So it's pretty, if you do it right, you shouldn't have any issues with that. Okay, so the next step is to put the ribbon in. So we just, it's basically common sense, I would think. We're going to start with the clasp end, and we're going to, you almost need to pinch this in half to make it thinner, and we're going up. Sorry, I did it wrong. We are going down. No, I was right. We're going up here. See, my memory isn't that great. Okay, so I want to be, yes, that is correct. Why am I thinking backwards? Okay, so we want to be up and then down, because we want to cover the coil link. There's it, the name, the coil link. And then, and just one at a time, we're just going to weave it up and down. And so we want the top to show the ribbon link. We don't want it to show the coil link. And that's how you remember how to do it. And you just keep going and try to make it so that the ribbon doesn't roll up on you, because it will. and then straighten it out as you go. And just keep going until you have it done. So there's no point in you watching me do the whole thing, so I'm going to pause here and you work on yours and I'll work on mine, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got my ribbon in, and it's got areas where it's folded a little bit, but you know what, that's just the way it's going to be. You can be as picky as you want to be, but as it's being worn, it's going to shift and move around anyways, so it's up to you how you want to handle that. So the next step is to glue the wire, the ribbon onto itself like this. And I tried multiple methods, and the one that I found the easiest was to use a glue gun. And I didn't mention it in supplies. It'll be in the description. But I'm going to quickly go get my glue gun and show you how I do it with the glue gun. Of course, you can fasten it any way you think would work for you, but I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. My gun is unplugged, so I'm going to do this as fast as I can before it starts cooling down. So what I want you to do is take the center, and I've got glue attached to my finger, the center part of the next link, so right there, I'm going to put a tiny little dab of hot glue, bend it, fold this over, and attach it to it right there. And it doesn't make a mess, it doesn't bleed through, it's not hot, just like that. And it should be cold already, and I'm going to now grab a scissor and snip off the end right as close to the glue as possible, so that it will have as little fray as possible. So I didn't bring my scissor here, so I'm running away a lot. Okay, back with the scissors, and you see where the glue is right there. I'm going to bend it back, the ribbon back, and I'm going to snip it off right next to the glue. So now it's got a seal, and it can't fray beyond that point, and it's going to keep it neat looking on the inside. There's nothing rough to touch the skin, and one of the things was to melt the edge of the ribbon, but you know, that makes it so it's scratchy. This is not scratchy whatsoever, so I think this is the perfect solution. It's got a little bit of where it's wider than the other ribbon, but it's, when you're wearing it, it doesn't really show. So there you go. And do the same with the other end, and it is completed then. And I'm not going to bother showing you again with that one, because it's just going to be done. And the final photograph, the bracelets are going to be on a turtle. You're going to see that at the beginning. I don't see that right now. I'm going to put the purple one and the pink one up on my turtle, and make a nice photograph for the cover of this video. So thank you so much for joining me with this. God bless. I will try to put the two videos together, but if I don't succeed, this will be part B, and we'll see you in the next one. God bless. Bye for now.